I also own a Wii, but it's entirely a GameCube emulator. I don't actually own any Wii games.
Hold my phone. I'm gonna change that.
I mean, Twilight Princess was good. I'll get into
It's also a GameCube game.
Yeah.
True.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm a gamer.
Hi, John!
Gaming has come a long way over the last several decades. The debate on whether the medium is art has largely ended with a very conclusive yes, and around the world we're finally seeing people treat it with more of the respect that it deserves. With that in mind, and because I'm just as much of a game talker as I am a game player, I went around to all my gamer buddies to enlist their help in discussing games as art. So, if you love gaming as much as I do, then join us. Trust me, you're among friends. Listen in as we discuss the themes, gameplay, and whatever else comes to mind. It's like a book club, but gaming. Today's topic?
Super Smash Bros. Melee! Hi, and welcome back to the Book Club of Gaming podcast. I'm John, your host. Today with me are Adrien.
Hello.
Sami.
Hi.
And McKenna.
Hello.
And we're super excited here to bring you another Nintendo game. Especially excited because here on the Book Club of Gaming podcast, we don't have any definitive proof that our biggest fan is not Doug Bowser. Of course, we don't have any proof that he is, but if you are listening, Doug Bowser, hi again. So we just went and rewatched the intro sequence to Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is today's topic. And I just want to ask you guys before we get going, what did you think of that as in nostalgic value, or even just in preparation for this episode, like watching that intro scene, what did that bring about?
Just straight up nostalgia for me because growing up, this was my favorite video game. I love Smash. Melee will always have a special spot in my heart because this is the first Smash that I ever played on my own console. I grew up with GameCube. And yeah, I mean, I would go over and play the N64 version with my friends at their house, but I got the GameCube was my first console. And that was the game that my parents got for us, in addition to a few other Nintendo staples. But yeah, this was the one that my brother and I, when we were really, really young, we used to only have 30 minutes of game time. So whenever we would play together, we'd always play Smash, and we would combine our game time to have it for an entire hour.
Well, that's cool that your parents would let you do that.
Yeah. Well, they didn't know that we did that. So
oh, okay.
They eventually found out, and we were like, well, we were combining it because we each get 30 minutes. So if we play together. So yeah, they eventually extended us to a full hour. So.
Well, that's cool because that kind of one of the points of a game that's co-op or that can be multiplayer is that it can bring people together. And I think that, your parents recognizing it as a good opportunity for you and your brother to bond is really, really nice.
Oh, definitely.
Wants to go next?
Let's see. I mean, for me, this intro sequence is, of course, for me, also a lot of nostalgia, but from a very different part of my life. Basically from early high school all the way through college, this was, this was a very common thing. My friends, many of my friends, played Melee together. So, from us just kind of, it was one of the first games that I got for my GameCube when I finally got it. In fact, I think it was the first game I got for the GameCube. And, I and my friends went from being absolutely awful at the game to playing it fairly well, near the end of college. I will say, though, that my perception of how good I was started very high and just decreased as I learned more and more about the game.
Same. I think that some people just never stopped getting better, and I peaked pretty quickly. But as far as just casually playing with my friends, it's I was always fine enough, but I never actually played competitively. How about you, Sami?
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I got Smash Brothers Melee around the same time as McKenna did. I think when I got the GameCube was also my first console that I owned. I don't think I got Melee right away, but I got it pretty soon. pretty quickly after I got the console. And it was definitely a game that, I actually didn't play that much with my sister, because it wasn't her kind of game, but I played it with my friends a lot. That was like, a big one, at least until, there started to be a little bit too much of a hierarchy of how good people were, right? Because there were a couple of people who just played way too much, and so if that person was over, we didn't play Melee just because it just wasn't fun, right? Like nobody else but that person got to win. And also I think at that age, some of us weren't, myself included, weren't that good at like dealing with not being, like super good at it, or like not feeling competitive. So it was definitely a game that we played quite a bit, but only with certain people who were sort of at the same skill level. But man, just talking about the intro, the music, the really quick jump cuts in this intro sequence, just the fluidity of the movement of the characters, like all of it is very indicative of how the game actually feels. So, like just looking at it from beyond the like feeling of nostalgia, just looking at it like an intro to this game actually works really, really well.
Yeah, I agree. And the way that the visuals like go for each character, it's not like they stick with the same style each time. Like you see Mario, it starts with Peach kind of doing like the hearts, and then you see Mario doing his moves. So you get a sense of who Mario is, what he's motivated by, being Peach usually. And then Bowser kind of comes up in this like nefarious, like dark, flamey background, and you get it. Like for each character, each set of characters are introduced with like a slightly different style of cinematic. They all weave really well together with the music, and I think that for somebody who's not familiar with every character, which at the time that I first started playing Melee, I think I was only familiar with about half of the characters myself. It's a really good way of setting
there's a ton of characters that I had never seen before.
Yeah, to me, Ness, I didn't know who Ness was. Even in like, I played him in the original Smash Brothers, but I still didn't know who he was until much after Melee. I was just yeah.
And I mean, this was the introduction of the Fire Emblem characters to the West. The games had never been released over here, and we're like, who are these people?
That's true. And those
it was
ended up
my
being
intro to Fire Emblem as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
for the longest time, I thought that Marth was a girl.
That was a really common confused. Like people were really confused by that.
I mean, he's really pretty.
Yeah, why is he wearing a tiara?
Because he's a prince.
Mm-hmm.
But a tiara?
It's more like I guess you would call it a circlet.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good point. I didn't know who Marth was or what he was from. I really liked the Marth and Roy combo. Of course, once you got Roy and he has like the fire, and it's kind of like everything Marth can do, but just a little bit cooler from the perspective of a teenage boy who's like, fire. Everything's on fire. So I was like definitely siding more with Roy than Marth by that time. But I think even though me and many of my friends didn't know who they were, they did become kind of quickly favorites of the group, just because, especially at that time, the Smash, and it's kind of funny to say that now, but or say this now, but the Smash Brothers was pretty devoid of sword users.
Yep.
Whereas really now it's almost like half of the roster is sword users.
Yeah.
True. Like, who had swords? It was Link, Marth, Roy, and is there anybody else?
At that time, I don't think so. So I think before that, it was just Link.
Yeah. Yeah, in the N64 game, it was just Link who had sword.
Ganondorf like uses it for like in his when you win a battle and he does his poses, he has it, but like he obviously doesn't use it in his.
Yeah, in combat he doesn't actually have it. I mean, he is basically, there's a lot of clones in this game. Like, for example, Ganondorf is literally just a clone of Captain Falcon.
Well, I mean, yeah, like a little, like, skill set or move set is pretty similar.
Well, it's identical, basically.
Change the stats, like he's slower, stronger, a little bit like that. I don't think there were any clones in the first game, were there? Maybe Luigi. Was Luigi in the first one?
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Luigi came around in the second.
Did he? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I can't remember. I don't think there were any clones in the first game, but it definitely added something to me. I think nowadays there's like a million clones in every game. Like there's like 3 versions of Fox, there's like 4 versions of Link or whatever, and it's like sometimes it can feel like a bit much. Or like I kind of wish these characters that I'm supposed to get super hyped for will actually have unique movesets. But at the time, it was cool just to have an option of like, you want to play with this moveset, but you don't want to be slow and weak. You want to be or slow and strong. Maybe you want to be a little bit quicker. You could do Captain Falcon. If you want to be a little slower but hit really hard and be able to take a couple of damage before you're staggered, then maybe you go with Ganondorf. So to me, I think at the time it was an improvement.
Like, even though the movesets were similar, they were like balanced differently enough that the characters did feel not unique necessarily, but different enough to fill different roles.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Do you guys have a favorite like clone character out of all the clone characters in Melee? Which I think there were Luigi, Roy, Ganondorf, and there's one more.
Dr. Mario.
Dr. Mario. Okay, I think there's one more after that too.
Young Link.
And Mewtwo.
Link.
Mewtwo's,
And Falco.
Mewtwo's not a clone.
No.
Yeah, Mewtwo's a clone. He's a clone of Samus.
What?
No, the moveset's way different.
No.
He has the same style of neutral special, but I think all the other moves are a little different.
I mean, like the charge shot is the same.
Yeah, but that's the only thing that is the same.
Yeah.
Like
I was thinking of Falco.
Okay.
So
yeah, Falco. So you've got Falco, Pichu, Mario, Dr. Mario.
Dr.
Luigi.
Mario, Luigi,
Young Link.
Marth and Roy are kind of clones of each other.
And then Captain Falcon, Ganondorf.
So it's like 6 clones right there. And Roy, 7 clones in this roster. So I think that's one of the bigger changes that this game made, is like giving you like just that little bit of customization.
Mm-hmm.
For almost.
But also, it did have more characters as well. Like even if you cut out the clones, you still have more characters than you did in the original.
Mm-hmm. Which is nice. I really like that. I think that it's really cool to be able to like see where all the characters come from in that intro, especially, and then also because the game itself doesn't really put too much focus on there being an actual plot. It's not until Brawl, I think, that they first start trying to give like an actual kind of like story element to the game. But
and
I don't think that What's that?
And everyone hated that.
Yeah, because well, actually, I really enjoyed Subspace Emissary. I didn't really like Brawl per se, but I really liked the Subspace Emissary. It was a fun little distraction, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was necessary. I don't think that it's ever been necessary for, especially a game with a premise as kind of, let's be honest, silly as this one. Didn't really need that much of a plot. But what do you think the narrative of the game is, and what role do you think the player has in it as you're playing?
Don't really think that there's much of like a storyline in this. Like you're literally just duking it out.
That's true. I do think that there's a little bit of like a hint from that intro cutscene, like the fact that you end up fighting Master Hand. I think the fact that you're kind of initially playing with dolls, although in this one it's trophies. In the first one it was dolls being pulled out of a toy chest, but now it's like more like action figures, like a little bit cooler. Like the kid's kind of growing up a little bit. He's like, I don't play with dolls anymore. I have collectibles. But I do think that there's some element of that, like there's some character out there who's playing with the characters that you're playing as, but you aren't playing as the character playing with those toys, because you fight that character in the form of Master Hand at the end of the story. Mm-hmm. So there's this strange disconnect, like you're playing a character in that character's imagination. And to me, it just reminded me of being a kid and playing with my toys that way. Like I had this one Spider-Man toy that I used to like thrash around and pretend I was like some kind of giant monster beating up Spider-Man. And in my head, Spider-Man would be fighting back. He wouldn't be doing a very good job, but he'd be like trying. And so to me, that kind of reminded me of just like being on the other end of that, like being the imagined version of Spider-Man, or in this case, Link, Mario, Dr. Mario, whoever, fighting back against myself.
And let's not forget about your friend Crazy Hand.
Crazy. Or as I like to call him, the Stranger.
No. So if you go into like classic mode and you go into or if you beat it, or if you go on normal or higher, you not only are fighting Master Hand, but you're also fighting Crazy Hand.
Mm-hmm. He has his own moveset, and you fight him in tandem too, which is
it gets a little crazy.
Yep. Oh yeah, I didn't see this question in the list of questions, but we should probably talk about it. What was everybody's main?
Oh, definitely Ness.
Ness?
Yeah.
What did you like about Ness?
I really liked the mid-range qualities of his combat. Like you could do a little bit of long range with your up special with the PK Thunder. But most of his moves kind of rely on people being like just a slight comfortable distance away from you. which the timing of which, especially when you get really good or playing against other people that are really good or playing fast characters, can be tough, but it's so satisfying to nail. Like somebody charging at you with Fox, hit him with a PK fire, and then go in there and smack him with a baseball bat. Like this is one of my favorite ways to win.
Yeah, I'd say the Ness baseball bat smash is like one of the iconic smashes.
Yeah.
The sound is so satisfying.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the even like I think the most difficult move for me in the game to learn how to land was his neutral special, the PK flash.
Yeah.
But anytime that I could get it to work, again, just super satisfying, almost unstoppable. Like even like if you timed it right, hit somebody, even if they shielded, like it would most likely shatter their shield, like leave them dazed. So he's sort of a powerhouse, but you had to really learn how to time out all of his moves right, which again, I just really appreciated that added depth.
He was a very annoying character to fight against when you're doing like a 4-person free-for-all, because at least in my friends group in high school, there was always that one guy who would play Ness and just do nothing but snipe. Just try to set up like sick PK flash kills. And it's like, hey, stop it. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Or even just like stand off to the side and someone else is about to get a kill. You just tap that dying character with your PK Thunder and suddenly that kills yours.
Yeah.
It'd be cheap. This isn't a game that has assists. So
No.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Favorite characters?
I think my main was probably either Young Link or Fox. Yeah, like just both of them, I guess, because they have a bit of range. You know, the blaster for Fox and the bombs and the bow for Young Link. But then they are also otherwise generally pretty close range characters. You know, and like quick ones, right? And I think it was the speed that I liked.
Yeah, I think Fox is still considered top tier in Melee, just for his speed, which is pretty hard to match. Again, like I was saying, trying to catch him mid dash attack, like his side special, is one of the harder things that you would have to do in the game. Did you ever play Falco?
Occasionally, yeah, I did. I mean, I played all the characters in Melee to some degree because I played it enough that I, got okay with most of them. But like I just, even though he hits less hard, I just liked Fox overall a little bit better.
Nice.
Just
How about you,
'cause
McKenna? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was a Zelda main. I know that she gets a lot of flack in the community because she's like not super fast. She's not as powerful as some of the characters. She is pretty slow. I mean, it takes a lot of work to walk around in that skirt, let's be honest. But I really liked her balance. I'm also one of those people who chooses a character based on their aesthetics. Yes, I'm one of those people, but she was always super fun to play. I always really enjoyed her moveset, like Pharaoh's Wind. Like if you fell off the stage, it was pretty easy to get back on the stage just by doing that. Also, you could transform into Sheik if you needed to be in a situation where you needed to move faster. And I'm not quite as good as Sheik, but it was still a lot of fun to play as both and have that option of changing between the two.
Yeah, she's another character with a lot of like really strong mid-range attacks, like her in-air up A with like that big explosion above her is like pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of people, like the thing that might turn them off from that is I could see an argument being made that in a game like Smash where things tend to move really quickly, having somebody that you have to really focus on the timing of mid-range attacks can seem like a cumbersome way to play. In the same way as like in a lot of RPGs, I really like to play or have bard characters doing debuffs and buffs, even though a lot of the times it would be quicker just to have them attack and end the battle quicker. But even though it's cumbersome, to me, that's just a more fun and satisfying way to play because it feels like I'm really taking advantage of the system and like optimizing. So I could understand like people being like, well, like that's cumbersome, but that doesn't mean it's not fun.
And potentially powerful.
And potentially powerful if you get it right.
Yeah.
It's like I could see like that and the option, like you said, McKenna, to switch into Sheik to get faster, to move in close for attacks if you need to, depending on the situation. I think that's the first instance of a character having a transformation in the franchise, which is something that they I think in Smash 4 they did away with shortly. And then in Smash Ultimate, they brought it back. But I really like the transforming characters quite a bit.
Which one was Smash 4 again?
Smash 4 was for the Wii U and for the 3DS.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I think that I haven't played that one actually.
Well, I have it, and we have a Wii U, so.
Oh yeah, okay, we have played that one a little bit.
Yeah, definitely check
Actually,
it
I don't
out.
think that you and I have played it.
Might be.
I really enjoy Smash 4. I think like until Smash Ultimate came out, to me Smash 4 was my favorite. And then Ultimate came out and like, oh, this shits on everything.
Still have yet to play it.
Hey Adrien, how about you, main character?
Yeah, so I started out as a Roy main. Like we mentioned before, it seemed pretty obvious to me. You know, Roy was basically Marth, but with much more damage and fire, and that seemed like a great idea. But as I got better at the game, I started maining Marth. Just fast hits incredibly hard if you get the spacing right. Kind of in the theme of a lot of our discussions, Marth is kind of like the mid-range melee character where he doesn't have any proper ranged attacks, but has one of the longest reaches for his melee attacks. And you've got that sort of where his sword does the most damage with the tip of it, rather than Roy, who does the most damage with the spike on the sword, which means that like your spacing is really important. And like a lot of people who were learning Marth, I started out as a dirty C-stick spammer, and then got better. What's funny is that for a long time I thought that Roy was complete garbage, and then I met a guy in college who just absolutely cleaned house with specifically Roy. Just something about the character he liked playing, and I did a number of duels, Marth versus Roy, and he just completely cleaned my clock.
It's a really great example of a set of characters that really pull from their source material, so in a way that makes sense for a fighting game to kind of alter their fighting style, because their games are strategy RPGs, which positioning yourself is such a huge part of. And so to have to position yourself like either close to or just far enough away from your enemy to do the most damage with your attacks is a really clever way, I think, to implement that into the gameplay. Yeah. Can you guys think of any other characters that really pull from their source material in a way that affects how they play in a clever way?
There's a lot of games to think about.
Well, like another example to me would be like Link obviously uses all of his tools. And each tool has like a specific range or purpose. The boomerang has a shorter range, but it has much more control as to where you can send it, and it's much quicker to whip out. So it sort of showcases the utility of Link, because like his strength in all of the games that he plays has been his arsenal, I think, less so just his pure sword prowess.
Yeah, let's see. Somebody like Captain Falcon. You know, Captain Falcon is from, F-Zero. It's a racing game, and dear God, does it feel like you're racing when you're playing Captain Falcon? I mean, he moves incredibly fast.
Boy.
Yeah, he's very quick, and he throws out those jabs so quickly.
Yeah.
Plus, he has. Yeah, like I love his catchphrases too.
Oh God, yeah. What's funny is that his signature move, the Falcon Punch, is one of the slowest moves in the game.
True.
But the rest of the character is absurdly fast.
And it's interesting because in F-Zero, not only are you moving quickly, but it also means that the slightest mistake could be catastrophic. So when you have such a catastrophic mistake in that game, like you could fall off the stage, be like, oh shit, didn't mean to do that. Falcon fail.
I mean, Pikachu obviously, like his, Pikachu's whole moveset is all, based on kind of the moveset of a Pikachu in Pokemon.
Yeah, same with Pichu.
Pichu has some extra stuff though, like damaging himself with the electric attacks that aren't from the game.
Oh yeah.
Yes, because he's baby and doesn't know how to control it.
Didn't they add that into the later Pokemon installments where Pichu's suddenly hurt themselves? Because I remember that's in the anime. That Pichu...
I don't think it's in the later games though.
To the internet.
To the internet.
To Bulbapedia.
But there's a couple of other. I think Roy is also that way. He'll damage himself
Only with
Yeah.
a fully charged B, though.
That's
And
Right.
that's an instant kill. I don't think that is from the game, although I haven't played Fire Emblem 6. I'm not sure exactly how the Binding Blade works in that game. It is the source of his power, though. It's kind of funny. Roy is a bad unit in FE6. It's only once he gets his signature sword that he's actually good.
Interesting. And I haven't played a whole lot of Fire Emblem, but I think one mechanic that I do remember is that a lot of weapons have like limited uses. Is that one of them? Like, will it break over time?
I believe the Binding Blade will eventually break, but you get it pretty late in the game, so it's not much of an issue.
Oh, okay. So you just use it to the end.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Kirby obviously is one that.
Oh, yeah.
clearly,
Yeah.
You know.
We gotta love Kirby. Yeah, my brother made Kirby.
Yeah, he's definitely nerfed from his Smash 64 incarnation where he was an absolute monster.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think actually, if you really look at it, it's mostly like most of the characters that have, you know, any kind of actual sort of moves in, you know, like exist as their own characters within their original games, are pretty well, you know, translated to Melee just generally, right? Like if you look at Mario, Yoshi, DK, you know, Pikachu, Jigglypuff, like the ones that we've talked about. Those are ones that have like, you know, an established movement within their game worlds. But then when you look at other ones like Captain Falcon or even Fox or Falco, they're not generally in their own games. They're usually not like character models that you control, right? Like you're racing the F-Zero racer, you're flying the R-Wing, or, you know, Dr. Mario, he mostly doesn't do, you know, like the side-scrolling thing, right? Dr. Mario has his own sort of thing, which is the Tetris, right? Or then they're not main characters like Zelda or Bowser or Peach or, you know, where like they're not player controllable for the most part in the games that they had been in up until that point, you know, like the mainline games, right? So I think that's sort of where the main sort of differences between which characters translate really directly from their original games and which ones don't.
That's true. I mean, Game and Watch. I mean, I guess Game and Watch surprisingly does a pretty good job of that because he's pulling from all of the different little Game and Watch games that he has. But
Yeah.
the way that those different animations are implemented as actual attacks are pretty creative and sometimes a little bit out there.
Yeah.
It's pretty satisfying to flip a sausage in someone's face. Like,
Yeah, I had a friend who was like a Game and Watch main, and he just loved it because of how weird and quirky Game and Watch is.
Yeah, playing against a good Game and Watch is a real pain.
Mm-hmm.
and it's so interesting because so much like his hammer attack is randomized.
Yeah,
So it's like, how do you bank on something like that?
you don't. You just try
Yeah,
to
you
do it
don't.
many times,
You just whenever there's an option. But I mean,
and then if you happen to land that 9,
Yep.
right?
Go
The
to
9 was
Horny
nice,
jail, bonk.
but it also wasn't the only good one. I guess you had to be really good at playing with whatever it gave you, because if you froze your enemy, like with like I think a 7 or something like that, like that was nice too, because you could do other stuff with it.
yeah.
I think it's like the first instance of a real trollish character. And this-
It was
I mean,
definitely a pretty trolly
Luigi's
character.
a little bit of a troll too.
I mean, his side B, you literally launch him like a fucking torpedo.
I love seeing him miss and then just like flop to the ground at the end of his like momentum instead of like a steady arc.
Yeah.
He like goes and then it's just like pop.
Yep.
Yeah, it is interesting how they had to come up with movesets for characters like Sami was saying, you know, characters like Fox or Captain Falcon or the Fire Emblem characters where it's like, yeah, these characters don't really, they're not from fighting games, they're not from a game that you can like control them extensively. We kind of have to just make stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
So another one that, I mean, all of the characters are drawing from their, you know, abilities. One that pulls in a lot of stuff is Samus. You know, you've got a whole bunch of abilities from all the games. And what's interesting is that they still had to make up a lot of stuff for Samus. Because in, you know, there was no Metroid Prime at this point. And up until then, and still through basically all the Metroid games, there's no melee Samus never melee attacks.
Mm.
And obviously in melee, most of your attacks are melee attacks. So they kind of had to condense all of Samus's beams into just her neutral B, which is funny because in the Metroid games, like, yes, the charge beam is a thing, but there are all these different beams and you're like combining them and using them. And that doesn't actually come out in melee. Like, one of the most important beams that you get in all the Metroid games is Ice Beam. Samus doesn't have a freeze move in melee.
It feels like such a missed opportunity. And I still think they haven't put it in any of her movesets in any of the future games.
Yeah. The one funny thing is that Samus has the flamethrower, which then did appear in Metroid Prime. I'm not sure if that was in inspiration or if it's just obvious. They felt it was obvious, but it's one of those things where it's like, did it come first in melee,
or were they like in development, simultaneously, but melee just came out more quickly? Because melee, I think, had a very quick development cycle. Like, they finished it in I think 13 months or something like that.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so it might be that like Metroid Prime was already in production at the same time, but it just took longer to get completed.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. And it's interesting because the flamethrower in melee, it still isn't a ranged weapon per se, because it's I think, isn't that the down smash? Or like
it's her up smash and I think down smash or flamethrower.
Right.
But I think she had the flamethrower in Smash 64 as well.
Oh, okay. And it's really more of like at the point of combustion, if you're like right there.
Yeah.
Which is still useful and really neat and aesthetically really cool. And I guess it's a good way of like differentiating your moveset, because there's not really like a type advantage in Smash Brothers the way there is in like Melee or whatever. So if you just have a projectile that's an ice beam and then a projectile that's a fire beam that pretty much function the same way,
right?
In that game, it really wouldn't do as much. I guess like the only difference being the ice beam there's a freeze function,
right?
So that would be nice. So I guess the only thing that would really make them worth changing would be like to give them a different like pattern of movement, like kind of like how Mewtwo's has sort of got that sort of weird sort of spinning as it moves forward.
Yeah,
which is really cool, because I think that's one of the things I really like about Mewtwo is that just it's harder to predict how to dodge his neutral special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mewtwo in general is a weird character.
Yeah.
One thing I always thought was really funny with him is that his neutral B is Shadow Ball, which is like a ghost move. It's not a psychic move.
Mm-hmm.
Can he even learn Shadow Ball in the games?
Yeah, in Gold and Silver he can Shadow Ball's a TM.
Oh, okay. Was that before Melee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
But it's not like a move he was known for.
No.
Right. So that's interesting. That'd be like if Pikachu was given like, I'm trying to think of like Bite. Yeah, you could teach him Bite.
Now that'd be adorable. Just Pikachu just chomping on someone.
I don't think Pikachu learns Bite.
I feel like I'm just trying to think of a move that he can learn that would be weird to give him.
Mega Punch?
Yeah.
No, that's
Pikachu Mega Punch.
Pikachu, use Headbutt.
Instead of Headbutt, they just gave him the Mega Punch.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing.
Tiny little Pikachu hand, just bop.
It'd be like another Falcon Punch clone.
Yeah.
Turn Pikachu into another Captain Falcon clone.
Yeah, but instead of like a Firebird coming out, it'd be like a Zapdos, but made out of electricity. Now that would be fire.
Actually, while we're talking about it, Pokeballs. How do you feel about Pokeballs?
I mean, I think it's like with the consent of the group that I'm playing with, they're pretty fun. Like if anybody in the group's like, I don't really want to play with Pokeballs, I'll be like, I respect that. It can be kind of chaotic.
Yeah.
It leads into this discussion of items in the game where it's like a lot of people are very purist. They don't like to play with any items because it puts too much chance into the game. But since this game is as much of a platformer, at least on most stages, as it is a fighting game, I think that having to race to an item once you notice it drop is usually a pretty good equalizer in and of itself.
Yeah. And honestly, I think, for me at least, it's either I'm good with having items off altogether if somebody really wants to play, like that clean game, whatever. But on the other hand, I don't really like, let's just have only like these items on, right? It's either all or nothing for me. Cause like for me, it's like, okay, either you have nothing, and so you just play with just whatever hazards are on the map, or you get everything, and it's just a little bit more chaotic, right? Like the mid, so like the steps in between, I don't really get.
I mean, one of my favorite ways to play with my brother back in the day was we would turn off all items except for Pokeballs.
Oh, then turn them on like high. Yeah, that's a fun little mode.
Yeah,
it's very chaotic.
Something silly like that. That's the extra chaos.
Yeah.
I'm okay with, but like, the ones where it's like, oh, we want items, but not the chaotic items. I'm like, well, then why play with items?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I could see some things like if you had the similar option in Mario Kart, I could see myself being like, let's just turn off blue shells. Leave everything else in there and just turn off the blue shells.
Yeah, I think so. I'm kind of with Sami where it's like either you played with no items, or especially for free-for-alls, I like turning items on like low. So that you get a few items, but we would turn some of them off. Some of the ones that were we felt were obnoxious. But then of course there are all of just the fun things that you can do with like items on high. Like bombs and like remote mines on high is like a really really dumb mode.
Like the bob-ombs is the only item,
the
and then put it on high and just walking around this like final destination. Like
do it on like Zelda Temple or something, and it's just like even trying to get to an enemy to try to kill them is incredibly dangerous. But one thing that I like about Pokeballs specifically is that because they have the chance of being so powerful, they're a bit like the final smashes in later games. When a Pokeball does drop, it really changes the dynamics of the game because suddenly everybody's like, ooh, I gotta get that Pokeball.
Yeah, and then it's like a Goldeen.
Yeah, it's like there's the option for it to be like a super weak Pokemon too.
Yeah.
Or something that really like there's Pokemon, I don't know if it's as early as Melee, but there are Pokemon later on in the series at least where you summon them and all they do is eat items so that nobody can get them. Or Chansey, who just sends out eggs, and it's basically like anybody could grab the egg, not just the person who summoned her, and you can heal from them. So like there's
or Wobbuffet, who can actually hit you if he starts going.
Yeah, I love that. So like there is a little bit of a twist. Like it's like we were talking about with Game & Watch's hammer. Like you don't exactly know what's going to come of it. So if you want to go and use the Pokeball, you're kind of taking a chance. Of course, there's a higher chance than anything that it's going to be beneficial to you in some way, or at least something that could only benefit you. But you never know for 100%.
Yeah, and then like once you've maxed everything out, like there's the chance that you can get either Mew or Celebi in your Pokeball, and you get like 2 trophies from that, which is pretty freaking cool. They don't do anything, but
I always thought it would have been neat if you were playing on a stage that had water, which might have only been the Great Bay for Melee. I can't remember any others. But if you could like knock your Goldeen into the water, or if instead of a Goldeen it was a Magikarp, and if you knocked it into the water, it would turn into a Gyarados.
Oh, that'd be really fun.
Just wreck.
That would have been hilarious.
I always thought it was kind of weird that the useless Pokemon was a Goldeen instead of a Magikarp.
Yeah, I think that was a missed opportunity for sure.
Carp.
Yeah. And it's I think it's better that we just have the in later games for the Smash franchise, you would have the Pokeballs and the Master Balls. And the Master Balls would be legendaries, and the Pokeballs would just be normal. I didn't like that. I can understand, because especially for people who want to turn off some items but not others, they could be like, well, the legendaries are too much. Let's just turn those off and then keep normals on, or let's have a battle that's only legendaries. But I do think that you lose something by not knowing when you pick up a Pokeball, whether it's going to be the strongest possible Pokemon, the weakest possible Pokemon, or anything in between.
Yeah, I agree.
Sami, so are there no items that you would just be like, yeah, okay, just turn that one off?
I don't remember any, but I mean, I'm sure there probably were a couple that were really irritating, but I actually actually don't remember anymore. It's been a while since I've really played with like items on. Most of the time, I think we did play with items off.
Any favorite items?
I mean, the Pokeballs are pretty fun. Obviously, the home run bat, obviously a favorite, just because like, man, that sound if you hit a home run. Yeah.
I really like the
big
lipstick because even if it's like, if you objectively look at it, like you do better just to go up and keep smacking them. Like the idea of optimizing by smacking them with the lipstick and then having the poison damage start to stack.
Yeah.
That was always fun to me. Like you could be like, that's cumbersome. It's like, yeah, but it's fun. I could just smack them once and then run away from them as the damage continues to build up. There was a change between Melee and Brawl for items like the Fire Flower. In Melee, you have to stand still and use the Fire Flower. In Brawl, you could like walk while using it.
Right.
Do you think that was an improvement, or do you think that like limiting your utility of the Fire Flower was a good idea for Melee?
I kind of like the Brawl version better.
Yeah, I think being able to move is fine. Like the fire flower was not a particularly strong item in the first place.
So being able to walk around with it really didn't make any, like wasn't like it did not make it overpowered, let's say.
Yeah.
And then I do have to say I think one thing that just always tickled me a little bit was the guns, like the blaster and the whatever the
ray gun
other one was. Yeah, and when it runs out of once it runs out of ammo, just being able to throw at people was like, I don't know, that particularly always just amused me. Was
bonk.
Yeah, you throw it, you fire the gun until you run out of ammo, and then you're just like, what? It's empty. Ah!
Just this little dose of desperation.
Yeah.
Or even if not desperation, like you've been wrecking somebody and then they go, oh good, they're out, and then you just
yeah. Yep.
Some I think maybe it's just Peach in the game, but maybe some others later on. I know that there are some others that can do this, but they can actually create their own items. Peach it was like the different onions from Super Mario 2.
Turnips. Yeah.
The turnips, yeah. So that
yeah,
was,
and
go ahead.
I was going to say Link also with his bombs.
Right. Okay. There we go. And yeah, I think that's a really good way of like, you could turn off items, but like some characters are kind of built around item use. I think that's a really neat thing to have in the game. It's like you can't turn their items off, but their items are also pretty like one use. McKenna, do you have any favorite items aside from the Pokeballs?
Honestly, Pokeballs they're my favorite just because they're so randomized. What else? Honestly, I think y'all covered it.
How about you, Adrien?
I gotta give a special shout out to proximity mines.
Oh, I forgot all about those.
Yeah.
Which is the point of them, right?
Right.
You throw them down, and then people are like, "Oh, avoid that spot," but then 2 minutes later, they're like forgotten all about it.
Yeah. Using them for like edge guarding, where you just like sneaky put one down by the edge, and then somebody tries to recover, they blow up and die. And like 25% of the time, it's you, and you're like, "Well, I deserved that." Because I forgot about my proximity mine.
I think you can also stick them onto players directly, right?
I don't think so. I think if you hit them with it, it'll
No, that's a sticky bomb in Brawl.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, they didn't think of that back then.
It's still such a good one. I would do a shout out to the bumpers.
Oh.
I think that those were also just in Brawl.
Really?
No, they're in Melee. They're in Melee.
They're a little bit. I think they do a little less in Melee than they do in Brawl. I think in Melee maybe they either have to be on a surface or there's some kind of hook to it that they increase their utility in Brawl.
Guys, the bumpers are only in Brawl for original Smash Bros. And Ultimate.
But it was not in Melee.
It was not in
Melee. Oh man.
Huh. I'm completely misremembering then.
Me too. That's interesting. Wow, they actually skipped it for Brawl. So there was a decision.
No, for Melee.
For Melee.
For Melee, they're like, yeah, these bumpers are not.
There's a Brawl. There's a bumper trophy though. But that's it. You can't use that.
I wonder why they did that.
I don't know.
Yeah, that would have been. Well then I guess home run bat then.
I think that we definitely need to leave that part in for the intro.
Oh,
where
yeah.
we're all just like freaking out about the bumpers.
Like, there's no bumpers. No, what? No, but there's totally bumpers. No, this one has no bumpers. But yeah, I guess the baseball bat then would have been a good shout out for me. And here's the thing, I never really used it. I had a very hard time ever timing an actual full swing with the baseball bat.
Oh yeah.
But it does enough damage just smacking somebody or throwing it at somebody.
Oh yeah.
That was
the explosive
the home run bat
capsules.
was really the home run bat was mostly something that you used in like 4-player free for all. You didn't use it in one-on-ones because it was too easy to avoid in a one-on-one situation for the most part.
I don't know.
I
Just
have-
throwing it at somebody could do some pretty serious damage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have 3 others that I want to throw in there.
Go for it.
The bunny hood that makes you go super fast.
Oh yeah.
The beam sword.
Mhm.
Because you get to feel like you're in Star Wars. I mean, come on. And then, let's see, the cloaking device.
Oh man, the cloaking device was interesting.
Yeah.
I think that one might be maybe the one that I would be like, okay, yeah, we can turn that off. But like,
It is kind of easy to see if you know what you're looking for. You just have to look for the space that looks like it has like heat ripples.
Right. Again, a whole lot more useful when you have 2 other players to keep track of at the same time.
yeah,
Like in a 4-way smash, but also becomes totally useless if you decide to give yourself a nickname because you always have the
Right.
reticle above you that says,
yeah.
"Here's
Yeah.
John."
I think
Yeah.
I also remember dying occasionally because of it, at least at the time, like
Yeah.
where you'd pick up the cloaking device and lose track of yourself and just fall off the map.
Right, because you can't see you. Like,
Yeah, exactly. You can't see yourself any better than anybody else can.
Yeah, cloaking device is one of the items that we turned off if we had items on, just because of the various problems with it.
I totally forgot about the cloaking device, probably just because of like, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, again, I think the metal shell was like the more useful,
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
like transformative.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed using the metal. Like, although, and there were really cool things. Like, yeah, you get to hit harder, you don't get launched as far, but if you're trying to recover, you're gonna have a tough time.
Yeah.
So you had to be
fall
prepared for that.
fast.
Yeah.
Can I also give a shout out to the Warp Star?
Oh yeah,
I have won several battles with those.
that's a fun one to have. Like just the warp star on, like on
Oh,
high
yes.
item drop. Like
Just
the
a
whole.
ton of exploding stars.
Have you ever killed yourself with the warp star?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially early on.
That's a great one.
Just going back to moves real quick. There was one that for some reason that reminded me of, which is Donkey Kong's ability to pick up another character and then just like walk off the stage with them. That's a classic.
Yeah.
Or Kirby.
Yeah.
Just sort of, or Yoshi for that matter,
Oh yeah.
and then like lay an egg off the side.
And this was back when you could still edge block.
Yep.
Yeah. All I had to do was hop up there and steal. And I don't know if you, I never got so good at it that I could do it just instinctively if somebody was trying to recover.
Mm.
But I have accidentally like 2 people trying to recover at the same time from the same location. It's like whoever gets to that edge first, like pretty much
Yeah.
that was it. Like unless the other person had a move like Fox's up special, which would knock you off the edge.
Right.
That was pretty cool. So some people really consider Melee to be the most definitive version or addition to the Smash series still. I know that we were talking about how some of us haven't played all of the games, but would you think that still holds up today to be the truth?
I mean, it was a pivotal entry into the Smash Bros. Like
Series.
lineup. Like it really defined what the game could be, and like it really helped define exactly what the game is and like how it evolved to how it is today at Ultimate. So I think that there's that coupled with all the nostalgia that so many people have with it. I think that the hype is like I don't think that it's overhyped. I think that it's hyped up because it was the perfect storm.
Of what?
Well, of nostalgia and of like innovation during that time. Like the graphics were amazing. Like the movesets were really fun. Like, it was a really enjoyable concept. Like, the music was amazing. It defined what Smash Bros. Was as a series. So
Yeah, I think there's also the extra dimension of like people still play it competitively. And largely because it was so popular, it turned out to have this insanely high skill ceiling. And because of that, the people who got really, really good there's still this community that plays it. It's whenever you're talking about like, is this the definitive edition? Is this the game that you should play? I lean towards, if you're going to sit down with your friends and play Smash, unless everybody grew up with Melee, you should probably just play one of the newer games like Ultimate.
Mhm.
I think another one of the reasons that we ended up with this ongoing Melee community was that the game that the next entry in the series was Brawl, which is a deeply flawed game and really galvanized the Melee community.
Yeah, to the point where it's like we just don't want anything to do with the new entries. Like they're
Exactly.
Not. Yeah.
What's
I can
interesting
see
about that is I think I've actually probably played more Brawl than Melee. Yeah, because Brawl was what we played in college.
Mm-hmm.
We had a Wii, and Brawl was the game that we played, and like, I never was a competitive level player by any means. I'm not really a fan of fighting games in general, but Smash was like the one exception. Like I said, like I wasn't by any means like a professional level player, and I think that's probably why like some of the problems with Brawl didn't ever really bother me that much, because I never tried to be at that level. It was more just like a fun party game that we played as a group. And we always had at least like full 4-player games. So so having that like chaos was fun, but like having like the smaller issues that become big when you're talking about that skill ceiling wasn't so much of an issue. But like looking at it sort of externally, I can see why Melee is more popular than Brawl, especially in the professional game community, because it just has a much higher skill ceiling. It's probably better balanced. Mechanics work a little bit better for that level of play.
Yeah.
I'm in the similar camp where I definitely played a more Brawl eventually, like again college, and then a little bit basically between college and the release of Smash 4, which was a little while. There was a good chunk of time between those two. I played a lot of Brawl, and the friends that I was playing Smash Brothers with at the time, they played Brawl. It had a lot of really cool things in it, like being able to customize and build your own maps for the first time in the franchise. I think one common complaint about the actual mechanics, not the most common, which I'll get to in a second, but one common complaint is the fact that they slowed things down a lot, physics-wise, between Melee and Brawl. But I think that was done with intention. I think that because Melee was so quick, it sort of favored really fast characters, which is why you ended up with like the Fox being the toppest of the top tier. Because like he was like basically he had some of the fastest combos, and with some range and everything, he was like very unequivocal in that sense. But once you got into Melee, it slowed everybody down, and it gave chances for different types of characters with different kind of play styles to shine. Because Fox was slower, everyone was a little bit slower. It meant you had a little bit more accessibility in learning how to use any character you wanted to. Although definitely there was a tier system that developed regardless.
Although it's worth pointing out that one of the reasons that Melee, when played at like a semi-competitive level, is so fast is because it is not intended by the developers. Like wave dashing, which we've somehow avoided mentioning until now, speeds the game up dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And then dash dancing too is another one that you can't really do anymore in any of the games. Like there's a little bit of it in no, not really, because they definitely put a little bit of a stall in the turnaround. I think that's a regrettable choice. I can understand why, because it definitely made that much of a gap between high skilled players and lower skilled players. But again, if you're playing any kind of a competitive game, then you want to be able to like have your skill being the defining factor. I think dash dancing, if you could do it really well, was a lot of fun. I was able to do dash dancing with Ness, which is part of what made me so capable with him, because like somebody would attack me and I would dash dance the other way, come right back and hit him with the baseball bat. Like that's a pretty good combo. Not as easy to do in the later entries. There also wasn't any random tripping in Melee, which is just probably the dumbest mechanic I've ever seen in a game. Like why was that in there?
Yeah.
But the option to design your own stages, I think, was something that is not praised enough, I think, for especially being emblematic of its time. Like the first time you could do it in that game, and to my knowledge, the first time you could do it in any fighting game, because up until that point, fighting games were more about fighting. You know, like it wasn't until Smash Brothers came around that I can remember fighting games having more of a platforming element, which I really enjoy about that. I don't consider it to be a strictly fighting game. I consider it to be part platformer, part fighting. And so being able to design your own stages, even though that got better in later entries, I thought it was really cool that they started being able to do that in Melee and Brawl. But I understand why, like, the limitations of the time, you couldn't really do that on a GameCube disc. It was like this big.
And also, like, you know, the very, very limited memory on the memory cards for the GameCube.
Oh, that's true, because it would have all had to go in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I recall that the Melee Brawl divide was something, you know, it happened to me freshman year of college, and really that whole era was my friends and I basically became really disillusioned with Nintendo, and this was just another example of it, of sort of taking something that was fun or taking something that was like very skill intensive and like it really felt like it was dumbing it down. And that's one of the things that really pushed all of us out of being like really specifically Nintendo gamers to just look at everything else that was going on. Most of my friends and I didn't really come back to Nintendo games until the Switch came out.
Yeah, I could see that. I think I bought a Wii U for Breath of the Wild. That was the whole reason I bought my Wii U, is because I didn't want to spend the extra $100 at the time on a Switch to get it for that. And I think looking back, I definitely regret that decision, because I never touched my Wii U anymore. All of the best Wii U games are now on Switch.
Yeah. I think for me,
go ahead.
I think that like I also, I mean, I had a Wii, but I played that a decent amount in college, but after that, I really didn't play console games in general at all for a very long time. I still don't play them very much at all. I think it's just because like I transitioned to PC gaming, and also like, you know, I don't have as many big group gatherings of people, you know, like just hanging out at a dorm like we used to play these like, you know, console games that you can all play together. So yeah, I moved away from Nintendo, but it wasn't really so much a move away from Nintendo, it was more of a move away from console gaming.
Yeah, it's funny. I also own a Wii, but it's entirely a GameCube emulator. I don't actually own any Wii games.
Hold my phone. I'm gonna change that.
I mean, Twilight Princess was good.
It's also a GameCube game.
Yeah,
true.
I would argue that the GameCube version of Twilight Princess is the superior version as well.
WarioWare Smooth Moves, anyone?
I didn't get into WarioWare that early. I don't think I played it until the Touch and Go, or not Touch and Go. What's the one? WarioWare Touched, or the DS?
I don't remember.
As back to Smash though, and this is sort of about all the games in general, but do you think that the initial impact of a game about different franchises colliding like this has been diminished over time?
Did it diminish over time?
Like when Smash came out for the N64, that was a really big deal. It was like, oh my god, it was like the MCU event, like the Avengers of Nintendo games. And it's like, they're actually doing this. But now it's sort of like expected that there's going to be another Smash Brothers, that there's going to be more characters added to it. And do you think it's kind of like lost that spark?
You know, I still think that there's a lot of people who get super excited about it because that's sort of like what happens when a franchise becomes a franchise, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like expectations put on it. Like yes, there was like the first time that you experienced it and it was like, "Whoa, this is so cool." But yeah, I think that that's all part of becoming a franchise.
Fair enough.
Like, you know how people lost their minds when Sephiroth came into the lineup for Ultimate.
Yeah, that's true.
Like people are still gonna lose their minds about new characters coming.
And I think one of the things that brought that spark back is in the DLC for Smash 4, suddenly we were getting characters that weren't Nintendo characters.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess we had Sonic and Brawl, but Sonic was always kind of close to Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just sort of like, yeah, we saw that coming. There were rumors of him being in Melee alongside Tails. So it was just sort of like, yeah, it was an inevitability. But now you're getting like Joker, Sephiroth, Cloud, many others that I could name. But
I do think in the later games, the lineup has gotten so large that the impact of the character kind of being in the game is lessened a little bit, where now that there are so many characters, it's just like, well, yes, of course, you basically got everybody. There is one exception that I can probably go on a long rant about, but
rant away.
So the one character that I'm still salty about not making it into Smash is anybody from the Golden Sun franchise, which is like a first party. It's owned by Nintendo. It's only appeared on Nintendo consoles. Isaac, the main character, is a support trophy in Brawl, and they could never bother to add him to any games.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, everybody's been complaining about Waluigi. It's like, I would much rather have Isaac step in from Golden Sun. And like, even if you had to like just do some quick edits, like patch it in. So, because I know that he remained in Assist Trophy in the later entries. But like, all you had to do was change that sprite to Garrett and put Isaac in the game, like as a playable character.
Yeah, the thing that always really annoyed me was that there were so many options, from that game, because you have all of these like signature spells that the characters have, and lots of, it would have been very easy to turn them into an interesting character for Smash. And to this day, I have not bought another Smash game. In small part because I was so salty about that. Although, I mean, at this point, it's kind of like the Golden Sun franchise seems fairly dead. They had that one, they released Dark Dawn, which was kind of a dumpster fire, and I couldn't blame them if it doesn't come back, since unfortunately Game Boy Advance JRPGs are for some of us, they meant a lot, but it's kind of a bygone era at this point.
At the same time, though, Smash Brothers has proven to be a good way to gauge audience appreciation for these old titles. Like, I think it was because of Smash Brawl that we ended up getting another Kid Icarus game. The popularity of that character that was kind of tested out. It was also Melee, as you mentioned earlier, that introduced Fire Emblem to the West. And I think due to how popular those characters are now in the West because of Melee, they were like, oh, let's go ahead and start releasing some Fire Emblem games in the West.
Yeah,
I think that would be a really good way to kind of gauge people's like interest in a new I almost called it Final Fantasy, a new Golden Sun game.
Yeah,
which I've really been wanting to see. Like, let's just retcon Dark Dawn, because I know that was supposed to be the start of a whole trilogy,
right?
And let's just start. Just give us some remasters of the original two. Just give us one remaster that puts 1 and 2 together.
That'd be pretty rad.
Yeah, the other character that I personally was rather salty they didn't include in the roster is Gino. Like, y'all remember Gino?
Yes.
Like, I understand that it's like a mask or something that you can put on your Mii now, but it's not the same. Like Like, dude, Gino would have been such a wonderful a wonderful character to include. Like, yes, he only ever appeared in one Mario game, but at the same time, like his popularity is still going strong. Like, people still love him.
Right. All right. Doug Bowser, if you're listening, or Sakurai, I know you're kind of done. You've said you're going to be done with the franchise, but if either of you are listening, some crazy chance, I don't know that you're not, please give us what we want in the next Smash game.
Also, please give me Waluigi. I need my purple husband in there.
Yeah, complete the 4.
Exactly, yes.
All right.
Let's see here. Any others, Sami, characters that you would really want to add to the franchise that you think it's kind of insane that they haven't added already?
No, to be honest, I don't even know who's in Ultimate at this point, so I can't say.
Yeah, to be fair, they've added so many characters that it's like, wait, who's been in Smash for 2 years now?
Yeah, and then like Sans pops in, like Sans from Undertale. Like, what? What?
Right, as like a costume, and I think there are genome costumes too.
Yep, and then there's Minecraft Steve that appears as well.
Oh my god, that was so dumb to me. Like,
it was like, but why though?
But I mean, I don't want to talk too much crap because I know that for a lot of people, they're like, yeah, Minecraft Steve, and it's like, yeah, if you're really into that, I'm glad for you that character was in there. It's just, why was he put in there before Isaac from Golden Sun?
Money.
Yeah.
Or Waluigi.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, why don't we bring it back to Melee?
Yeah, okay, totally.
Ranted about non-Melee Smash games for a while.
Totally. Did you guys have any questions that you wanted to start pitching here? Or if you want to read from the list that we have, you can do that as well.
Well, I have one for the group. What was your favorite way to play Smash? Like, did you like doing classic mode, adventure mode? Were there any like types of like Melee that you particularly like to choose, like the game modes or anything like that?
So you're talking like more like single player Melee, like outside of the like, because obviously for me it's like my favorite way to play would be with 3 other people. Just smashing it out, right?
I mean, more along the lines of like there are different types of like game modes within like the multiplayer thing that you can do. Like you can do like
rule sets.
Yeah, exactly. Like everybody's big, or like you have to collect coins, and whoever has the most coins is the winner at the end, or something like that.
Okay, so the coin one is fun for like 1 or 2 rounds. I remember like doing it with some friends, like, that was pretty fun. Let's go back to the normal way though. The giant mode, I think I remember, especially when the game was like still new. Like we would, me and my friends would be playing giant mode all the time on like whatever stages have like the tightest platforming requirements, like the DK stages. Like to be playing that in giant mode is pretty funny. Mini mode was also kind of fun because like if you played mini mode but like in the Hyrule Castle, it just took what was already an arduous and long battle and made it even longer.
Yeah, and then like your only items are like you shift your only items to like the poison mushrooms.
You can go even smaller, huh?
Exactly. You can get itty bitty.
Even is it mini mushrooms and then cloaking devices?
It's also always fun to play in like the mini modes where like all of your items that you get are freaking massive.
Oh yeah.
What do you got? What about you guys?
So for me, I'd say that I definitely have played a lot of like competitive style Smash where it's like, okay, it's just the 2 of us were on one of the stages that doesn't do anything too goofy. I actually dislike Final Destination. I think it's a dumb stage. I'd much rather play like Battlefield where there's some like platforms that you can use.
Yeah, not having any verticality kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's like I know that the purpose is that it's a boring stage, but it's like not even an interesting stage competitively, in my opinion. And the fact that the competitive scene actually does allow stages other than Final Destination, I think kind of reinforces that But the other thing is just I love playing free-for-all, big, goofy maps with like low items.
I agree. To me, it's always, I've mentioned it a couple of times so far that it's always been half platformer, half fighting game. And so it didn't make as much sense to me that people wanted to reduce it to having Final Destination 5-stock be like the definitive way to play the game. I understand that it like makes you really focus on certain aspects of whatever character's skill set you are, but I think it doesn't appreciate the fact that many characters are built around that verticality, as you mentioned, Sami.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, and also the fact that there's absolutely no items. It's Final Destination. There's no verticality. I don't think that's very interesting to play or to watch. But yeah, I mean, for me, probably, I usually kept away from the like completely ridiculous stages that just go through constant transformations. Like unless we're playing something kind of silly, but usually it was like Hyrule Temple or Battlefield, or there's a bunch of others that are fairly like there's some change, but it's not a massive transformation of the stage. And then three or actually I think I played 3-stock a good bit, maybe just for like quicker matches. Most likely, especially when we were playing 4-player free for all, right? Just so that nobody gets like left out of the game for too long if they die quickly.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, Hyrule Temple was one hell of a stage. I think to this day that there's a picture out there on the internet somewhere where somebody basically like broke down all the different parts of Hyrule Temple, including classifying that area underground, that like box is basically like the Fight Club because it was so hard to die there. You really only had one direction that you could get killed off of. You could rack up some pretty impressive damage numbers before eventually the game, somebody would hit a smash and they'd just like bounce off 7 walls and like go off the top and die. It's like, how did I die?
At that time, did they have wall grabs as a mechanic?
Wall grabs? So
like I know in Brawl and then all the ones proceeding from there, that if you were to hit your shield button or dodge button at the right time when you're being like ricocheted into a wall, you could just grab onto the wall and save yourself.
You can't grab onto the wall, but you can tech off of walls.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, you could recover with like good timing, although you'd often hit a certain point where you have so much damage that a smash would just kill you in like milliseconds.
Right, there's no way to time it.
Yeah.
That's fun. Like, and there's also parts of that stage, like there's one spike that if you hit the bottom of that spike, then it automatically spikes you down and kills you. There's a lot going. Were there tornadoes in that one? No, that was the other one.
That was the Zelda's castle in the original Smash that had the tornadoes.
Yeah, that was definitely the biggest stage, I think, in Melee. And I think that's the one that me and my friends played the most on because it made so much use of everything that Melee was.
Yeah.
Oh man. Though playing that level if you had like 4 people and the fights kind of ended up as 2 fights on opposite ends of that stage. Oh, trying to see what was going on the the whatever 480i resolution that the GameCube put out. And like I think we had like a fairly big TV, but that was a 42-inch plasma TV. And like when it really zoomed out and you're trying to see what the heck's going on and trying to figure out how to like fight somebody when your entire character is like 10 pixels on the screen was that was interesting.
I think the TV that we played it on, me and my friends, was actually really small. Like maybe about as small as like a desktop monitor, not like a big one either. Like
Oh, that was the upgrade for my house. For a long time, we had this old CRT that, I think the screen it may have been a 12-incher, it may have been a 14-incher, but it was not large. It had like chromatic aberration. When my parents finally bought a flat screen, it was a massive improvement.
It's like watching ants fight in an ant farm.
Yeah.
Which dot is me? In that situation, you have to turn off cloaking and poison mushrooms.
Yeah.
Gotta make sure that your nickname is on display for everybody to see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did anybody have friends that would just like use random Japanese characters for the nickname?
No.
I think so. I don't think we knew what they were or what
Yeah.
they meant. And then there were definitely some like early stage like fascination with Japanese culture
Oh yeah.
that was like just represented in like maybe not the most not the smartest way, but
Right. Early stage, you say.
That was like mid-tier for Adrien.
No, by the time I was 16, I was full weeb.
Honestly, same.
I mean, I definitely
It started
joined
with
the.
Pokemon.
I definitely joined the. In my high school, we didn't have a Japanese club and an anime club. We had a Japanese anime club, which is kind of silly when you think of, like,
Yeah.
the whole high school like broke down all of Japanese culture into an appreciation for anime. Like,
Right.
like, yeah, that's all. That's what it is.
So here's a fun one. Melee was released around that sweet spot in the 2000s when gaming myths and rumors still coexisted with internet chat rooms. Can you remember any notable ones that were floating around? And if so, how did you hear of them?
There was definitely the one about Sonic and Tails being in the game. There were some really convincing screenshots, I use air quotes here, that were put online that showed them within the roster. I think everybody was like struggling because there wasn't any, at the time, there weren't so many people definitively answering no. Like there wasn't as much data mining going on to be like, no, there's no place in the game where they could actually be hiding.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a big struggle. People, some were like, no, it's a myth. Other people were like, no, you just have to play for 300 hours straight and leave your GameCube upside down or something crazy.
Yeah, surprisingly, I feel like there were fewer rumors about this than some earlier games where people's imaginations were really let to go wild. In small part, just because there's so much stuff in Melee already.
Yeah, I don't really remember any significant rumors about Melee. I think it was just like, well, partly it was because I wasn't really active online specifically, and it wasn't a game that was really talked about very much at school.
Mm-hmm.
Other than those of us who played it, but there weren't that many of us, and we were all kind of just like figuring things out as we went along. So I don't think there were any real big rumors, but I will say that like the way that you unlocked characters in Melee was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going through the single player and you know you get like yeah, or well, there were also like some things that you had to play in multiplayer, but like, you know, then you get like a challenger approaching and you have to beat them in a battle, and if you don't beat them, you don't get them as a character. You have to go through it again and you know try it again.
Do it on repeat.
I definitely wouldn't have discovered Luigi on my own. Like I would have known he's in the game somewhere, but I wouldn't have realized you have to finish that first adventure stage with this amount of time left.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty tough. There was one rumor that I heard that seemed like it would be false, but turned out to be substantiated. Did you guys ever hear about the black hole glitch?
Yeah.
So that one was pretty cool. I remember like hearing about it and then wondering with my friends, is that real? And then I think we spent an entire afternoon trying to recreate it. And then when we finally got it to work, it was pretty glorious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a fun way if you have no time limit on your battle. If you could just set up a black hole in the middle of like a relatively small stage and like have that just be an obstacle, that could be pretty fun. Although it did require you to have a very specific set of characters to then do your battle with. You need to have someone playing Peach, someone playing Fox, probably someone else playing Fox or Falco. And you need to have so it's like a very specific fight that you could then have with it, but it is kind of a neat novelty.
But that's actually something that I didn't hear about until, I don't know, mid 2010s. So like, you know, long after I'd stopped playing. But you know, there was like probably was some conversation or you know something I was watching regarding Melee and like the competitive community and sort of the people who are really still into Melee. So like it was definitely a confirmed thing that I never questioned because it was, you know, introduced to me with like video of it happening. So yeah. But it was definitely not something that I ever went back to Melee to try to figure out how to do myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. How about you, McKenna? Had you heard of that one?
I wasn't allowed to go onto chat rooms when I was a kid, so
But none of your like competitive friends ever brought it up?
I mean, they did, but they were like, "Yeah, we tried it. It didn't work." And I was like, "Y'all are idiots."
In their defense, it's actually pretty difficult and cumbersome to make work.
Yeah.
Like I could see that being like, yeah, like it's almost like you did it once, you're probably never going to do it twice.
For sure.
Like you saw it, it was true, you were there. Any other way?
I don't know. Like I never really experimented with any of that. So,
were there any other rumors? I think I'll pass it on, see if anybody else has any before I say the other one that I have in my head.
No, I think that's it.
There was one rumor I heard where people were saying you could play as Master Hand. And I never found out if that was true. To this day, I still hear people talk about it as if it's fact, but I've never and I know that now I could just YouTube it, but there's some mysteries in life that I'd prefer to keep as mysteries.
I don't know, how would that work though? The Master Hand isn't really a character that you could easily control with a controller, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to the Master Hand thing, you can only any character is capable of being Master Hand, but only the third player slot can actually control him.
Oh, okay. So you can control him.
And it's a glitch, so...
Got it. So it's not like an unlock... I knew it wasn't an unlockable character. It was like a very specific situation that you could suddenly control him. Do you remember how the glitch worked exactly?
Stand by. So this method works in all modes except tournament mode. I'm on the Super Smash Bros. Wiki right now. The player must have a controller in slot 3 or Master Hand cannot be controlled. It is much easier, blah, 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 blah. Using this controller, place the cursor over the name field of the character selection screen. Now press the A and B buttons at the same time, and the player will come to the name selection. Hold the B button, but release the A button, and then go down with the cursor until they are over the name entry field. Then press A button at the right time, whatever that means. The game should want to go back to the menu because the player has held the B button, but it should also want to go to the name entry screen because it pressed the A button over name entry. If performed correctly, instead of going to either of these, the game should go to the stage selection screen or in single player straight to the game. After selecting the stage, the player will be playing as Master Hand.
Wow, that's convoluted.
Yep, yeah, and you can actually use all of his stuff like jet, ram, crush, laser fingers, gun, grab, poke, punch, etc.
And then are you, I wonder if you're have to have the percentage, because you can't really be knocked off the stage.
No, you can't be knocked off.
So it'd have to be percentile damage, bringing it down.
The glitch.
Yeah. Or HP, not percentage, HP. Yeah, those are some of the rumors that kind of existed around the game in the community growing up that I really enjoyed. What do you guys think of the mini games, side modes? I know we were kind of talking about the adventure mode versus classic mode and stuff like that, but then there was also home run contest, break the targets, and then some of the challenges that there were fight Giga Bowser or something like that.
They were fun.
Yeah, they were fun. I enjoyed the fact that some of them would teach you some of the skills that you needed to play the game.
Yeah.
The target tests for different characters. It would be oh yeah, you need to figure out how to do this or that in order to for this character. And it provided a way to kind of push you towards that.
The play style of that character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Especially Break the Targets was the one that also came to mind for me in terms of the game teaching you how to play the game in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That wasn't, just a tutorial. It was in order to be able to get through this whole target breaking thing, you need to figure out how some of these mechanics about this character work.
Right. Some characters could wall jump, and then their Break the Targets would more or less require you to do so.
Mm.
Or you'd have to figure out how to use Mario's, fireballs in a specific way, or
what their fall angle would be if you just shot them off the edge.
Right. Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Little finicky. And I think in later entries they just have the same arena for everybody's Break the Target, which is kind of lame.
Yeah.
I think that, and then the home run contest was one that I never spent too much time on, but I know a lot of my friends back at the time were trying to get really, really far. I think there were even rumors that you could unlock certain characters through the home run contest. I don't think that was true. Did you guys ever spend any time with the home run contest?
I did, yeah. I think it was also actually useful in terms of teaching you a little bit about how to play the game, in terms of like being able to figure out how to combo moves together in a way that like doesn't get an enemy character too far from you, so that you can continue to rack up the damage quickly before getting that final smash in to actually finish them off.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Because it was quite a challenge sometimes with certain movesets to keep the bag there long enough for you to actually do enough damage to get a good, like distance with the home run bat. Because you'd accidentally like knock the character, or knock the sandbag onto the track on accident, and it'll be like, oh, you went 2 feet, and you're like, ah.
Yeah.
After all that work. Any other notable ones?
The wireframes, probably.
Oh, like the 100-man melee or infinite mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember there was
Very
one...
Matrix feeling,
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like the Neo versus Smiths fight in Matrix Reloaded.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they just keep coming.
Yeah, that's what 100-man melee feels like.
I used to love getting Donkey Kong in there and just using my down special. And like, yeah, there was a way for them to stop you, but like sometimes they wouldn't. Like it would just keep sending them off.
There was definitely some pretty fun cheese there.
Yeah. But in terms of being able to just straight take them on, it was also very fun just to put yourself through a gauntlet in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other one that I really liked was tournament mode. Did you guys ever play that?
Oh, yeah. There was definitely one or more instances of like we're ending up with just 2 level 9 computers in the final round. We're just watching it.
Yeah, my friends and I would actually we would sometimes just put it all to computers and play a drinking game.
Oh, that would be fun.
I mean, I'm down to do that anytime.
Yeah, you'd have to bet on who you thought would win, and then drink if you got it wrong.
And then I think there was also the option to just skip computer versus computer fights and just see who the winner was, but I never did that. That was boring.
I only ever did it if I was like on timed game time with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, because you only had that hour.
Yeah, exactly. My mother was very strict with it.
Did you guys ever do team battles?
Yeah, definitely.
Those were fun, especially like two players versus 2 other players to try to figure out like who are you going to play, like who can I play to complement that.
Yeah, I don't think we ever thought too much about like team comp, but we definitely did 2v2s.
But yeah, it was just like whoever you're strongest as.
Yeah.
Yep, versus like 2 level 9 Mewtwo's. Because those guys are really hard to beat.
And there was also options to turn on friendly fire.
Yeah.
Just extra chaotic, which I always really liked, but it's sort of like, there's a lot of ways to play that game. And I think that the sheer amount of content within like all of those options is one of the things that makes this game one of the more memorable from the GameCube era. Like I think if people were to put a ranking list, like if you were to look at like the best 5 or top 10 games of the GameCube, I think most lists will have Melee on there. If not in the top position, then somewhere close to it.
Definitely.
Are there any mechanical or design choices that you would change about the game? Like things that like didn't age too well, or things that you think they thought would be a good idea that didn't turn out to be a good idea, similar to the tripping and brawl?
Honestly, I feel like the game is pretty solid. There are some tweaks to characters that I might make to try to make the game more balanced, but like mechanically, I think it's pretty good.
I think the only thing is like some of the aerial movement stuff that they sort of introduced in the later games that weren't in Melee.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like the one big thing that Melee lacks is sort of movement options when you're like in the air.
Because the fall speed is so quick in Melee.
Right, but like there's no, if I recall correctly, there's no air dodge in Melee, is there?
There is. That's how wave dash
you're,
rating works.
But you're made useless afterwards. In Brawl and Onward, you can dodge in the air and then still do things.
Right. Right. Yeah.
In Melee, if you dodge, you have to land before you can do anything else. You can only dodge the once. So there was a little bit of a limitation there.
Yeah, I think I like that approach of the later games better. But I think that's just like an idea that they had later that it wasn't really wrong that they didn't do it in Melee. Just if you were to, tweak Melee in some way, that's probably the one change I would make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also just to give you a little bit more time, like you said, in the air, a little more stuff to do in the air, that would have been nice. Because again, so much of the game was meant to take place platforming, jumping around. And I think having more options to either disrupt that for other players who are trying to like just get a proper footing, that would have been nice. That being said, though, I do like the speed of the game elsewhere. And like you said, Adrien, before, a lot of it was unintentional, but I think the fact that you could wave dash, even though I was never good at it, like I think the fact that it was possible, like really made the game what it is for so many of the people who fell in love with it.
Yeah, definitely.
How about you, McKenna? Anything in there that you would have changed?
Probably not. It's probably just my nostalgia speaking, but to me, it's a pretty damn near perfect fighting game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely, I think that there were certain things that they improved for Ultimate, but I think that for its time, it was one of the better fighting games. And whereas nowadays, you could be like, you want to play Smash Brothers? And someone would be like, oh, yeah, sure. I think at the time, if you could ask anybody, do you want to play Smash Brothers? And they would say, yeah. You're like, all right, this is going to be a friend of mine. Like, we're probably going to play.
Oh, yeah.
There's something to be said about like we were talking about how it's nice that some of the later games were a little bit more accessible. But I think that I understand also why so many people have a fondness for games that are less accessible, that do require we were talking about this, Adrien, in the Dark Souls episode, where part of the point is its difficulty, and you need a high level of gaming literacy to really appreciate the game. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either, especially for something as competitive as Smash Melee turned out to be.
Yeah, that is always the interesting thing, which is like Smash Melee turned out to be incredibly competitive, but it wasn't intended to be. It was intended to be a party game, and just kind of by the confluence of having incredibly tight controls and having a couple of glitches that made the skill ceiling so high, it turned out to be like one of the most competitive games ever made.
And I think that's like you make a good point, Adrien, that it wasn't intended to be a super competitive game, and I don't think that Nintendo has ever really wanted to make competitive games, right? Like that's just not what they care about. They care about generally accessible games that either tell good stories or are fun to play with friends, or like that's kind of their approach. They don't really go in for the really hardcore games.
Yeah,
they never have.
Well, that's not true.
Well,
remember Nintendo Hard? I mean,
okay, yeah, like I guess early on, like the really early, but since really the GameCube or even the N64, like they never really like they pivoted away from that, right? Like they want to have a big audience for their games, and if the game isn't approachable, it's not really a success for them. And I think that's probably where some of the like chafing and sort of friction between the Smash like pro community and Nintendo comes from, is Nintendo's like, we don't care about it, and so the pro community feels kind of left out, or not listened to, which is like different from how the pro community for many other games operates, where like they tend to end up being pretty close to the developer and having fairly significant amount of say in the balancing of games. In some cases, actually to the detriment of the game, I think. There's certain games that I've played that became less fun once like the developers really started focusing on the pro community. And they ended up making the game like more competitive for the pros, but not very fun to play for anybody who wasn't a pro.
Yeah.
For those of you who have played it competitively or even not competitively, but McKenna, I think that you might have a lot to say on this just because of your experience with that. How do you feel about the tier system that has sort of developed just within the Smash community?
As far as like the tier system goes, I feel like, yes, I totally get why it's there. But honestly, like if you master a character, you can be a force to be reckoned with. Like it doesn't matter where on the tier system you are. I do feel like the tier system is valid, but like at the same time, there are other, like, you can definitely break through the tier system as, like, say, I don't know, let me just quickly look up the tier system right now.
So I can add on to that a little bit. like McKenna said, obviously there are characters that are better than other ones, but the tiers aren't ironclad. Like, for example, fairly recently in competitive Smash, Yoshi became a huge thing because this one guy just came out of nowhere and it was just like, hey, I figured out Yoshi, and he's just like a god with Yoshi. And it matches up fairly well against other good characters. I don't think, maybe this has changed now, but at first it was like nobody else could play it. It was just this one guy. It just clicked for him. And because of that, Yoshi was a viable character at top tiers of competitive play. And despite the game itself being static, the players aren't static, and they're continuing to innovate and get better. So to the point that, competitive Smash these days is very different from competitive Smash 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Did you look up that tier system, McKenna?
Yeah. So as of March 29th, 2021, it is just going in order from S to F tier. Fox, Marth, Jigglypuff, Falco, Sheik, Captain Falcon, Peach, Ice Climbers, Pikachu, Yoshi, Samus, Luigi, Dr. Mario, Ganondorf, Mario, Donkey Kong, Young Link, Mr. Game & Watch, Mewtwo, Roy, Pichu, Ness, Zelda, Kirby, and Bowser's at the bottom.
Rip Bowser.
I know. Poor Koopa.
I like how much lower the two characters that can damage themselves ranked than their counterparts that they're clones of. Like,
Yeah.
Pichu's
Well,
just
especially
like
the Marth-Roy divide is enormous.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, Marth is so much faster than Roy.
Mhm.
Also,
Yeah,
it turns out...
It's definitely, I feel like it's based mostly on like speed and stuff.
Yeah, it's speed and range are the two big things.
Was there something else you were going to say there, Adrien?
No, that was what I was going to say.
Okay.
As it turns out, if you have two characters and one of them has much longer range than the other one, and is much faster, it's kind of a wash on why Marth would be S tier and Roy would be like E tier.
Any
Roy
thoughts
is
on that?
D tier.
Sami, did you have any thoughts on the tier system?
I mean, I think just honestly kind of surprising that Kirby is as low as he is.
I know, Kirby was a good boy.
I know.
He
that
got
is
the
definitely
hell.
surprising.
He got the hell nerfed out of him from 64.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, like, yeah, obviously there is like a pretty big difference between the top tier and bottom tier ones, but at the same time, I also never played at a level where I think the character selection mattered as much as the skill of the player. So, I definitely knew people who could make Kirby work pretty well, or like who are really enjoyed playing Ganondorf, and like that's good, right? That it's not like, oh, you're playing Ganondorf, like you're just gonna get crapped on the entire time, right? Like you're probably gonna statistically have a worse time, but you don't feel terrible in a 4-player free for all for playing one of the lower ranked characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, that it is, while there is a ranking, it's not such a huge difference between the top tier and bottom tier ones that you just should never touch those bottom ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I can safely say that I've encountered, I think, exactly one person who played at a level where Fox was good. Like most people who play Fox are not playing in the way that makes Fox very tip-top tier. Like in random bashing each other in a 4-person free-for-all, Fox is probably not top tier. Like just because he's so technical. And the rankings are based so much on the specific circumstances of competitive play.
I guess, yeah, whenever I hear Fox brought up as like the way to play, it's always in conjunction with 5-stock Final Destination.
Right.
1-on-1.
Exactly.
Going back to Kirby there for a second, though, I think one fun question to ask is, what is your favorite power to absorb as Kirby? Like this, and just to kind of diatribe a little bit, we were talking about characters like Game & Watch who have that randomizer on his hammer. With Kirby, it's a little less about randomizing what you'll be able to get for that special neutral special, as it sort of depends on not just your choice as a player, but the player choice of the other players. Like, who else is there going to be to choose from? What are they going to choose?
Yeah, ironically, I feel like most of the neutral Bs weren't that impactful in the game and weren't used. Now, there are a few characters where that's not the case. Samus, for example, is basically built around her neutral B. So taking that as Kirby, makes sense. But so many characters, it's like, yeah, it's not that relevant.
Right? Like you get like the turnip from Peach.
Right. I mean,
Peach is the toad counter.
Yeah, toad counter, which is
kind of fun.
I would probably go with the DK punch.
Yeah.
Like, it is kind of fun to grab that as Kirby, and then, it's a much smaller animation, the charge up for it, so, like, people might not always notice it as obviously when DK has it charged up. So you can sometimes get in a sneaky DK punch.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
I also just really like sucking Mewtwo up as Kirby, just because the Shadow Ball does a fair bit of damage. Plus, it's kind of cool to see Kirby with, like, the JoJo, oh, you're approaching me, like black, purple fog lines when he's got it fully charged. It's really amusing to me.
Oh, yeah. Also, like, in terms of just the aesthetic of the hat itself, like being just Mewtwo's spikes.
Yeah, his ears.
So they're like the flesh color for Kirby as well.
Yeah. It's really funny to see that.
Yeah, I love all of Kirby's little transformation changes.
I also find it really interesting that when he sucks up Zelda, he doesn't get like her normal tiara, he gets young Zelda's hat.
Oh, really? I never noticed that.
It's really cute.
That's a cute little detail, like Easter egg to throw in there.
Yeah.
And then you could also absorb Sheik, right?
Yeah, you get like the full-on like face mask and the bangs, and
That would be cool.
It's also really funny to see him as Ganondorf because he's got like the major angry eyebrows in there as well.
I really shout out for the Game & Watch power that you can get, because it's sort of like a thematic flip of Kirby going from trying to eat everything to like trying to feed everyone else, but being an absolute disaster at it. It's pretty great. Nice. How do you guys think the Smash Brothers franchise, especially Melee, has changed the landscape of fighting games?
I'd actually argue that it basically hasn't, with the exception of spawning this kind of subgenre, which has been copied to limited success by other studios. Like, the main genre of fighting games is still kind of doing its own thing and has been completely unaffected by Smash. To be fair, though, I don't know enough about the main genre of fighting games to really say for certain, but I don't think we've seen many changes towards any of the innovations that Smash brought.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also not very like plugged into the fighting game genre beyond Smash, but from what I can tell, like there are different genres, you know. And I think that the changes that have happened in the fighting game genre over time have come out of experience of earlier fighting games in the more traditional genre, rather than taking things from Smash. Because like the big thing about Smash is that verticality that's just not a part of standard fighting games, and it shouldn't be, because that would very significantly change the nature of fighting games and the things that people like about your traditional fighting games.
Have you guys played much of the sort of knockoff Smash titles? Like what was the one for, was it PlayStation All-Stars Battle?
Nope.
No. And then there was one recently that got released that was for Nickelodeon All-Stars.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of it, and I've heard a lot of mixed reviews.
I've heard good things about it, but I haven't played it yet, so I don't know for sure. But it is interesting. It's like, you're right, I think, Adrien, that they haven't really impacted the main genre of fighting games all that much, but there have been so many people who are trying to capitalize upon this new genre. And it's just an example of something that Nintendo can do that nobody else has quite figured out how. If even only because they're afraid of doing it so close to how Smash Brothers does it, that it just comes across as a copy. But the interesting thing to me about that is that, like, what's the biggest difference between Street Fighter and Guilty Gear?
Mm-hmm.
Right, it's like they're fighting games. Like Mortal Kombat is known for its super gory, like battle animations and finishing moves, things like that. I guess Marvel versus Capcom is known for the fact that you're rotating your characters out for a team of 3. But most like fighting games, they get well known because of how tightly they make the core mechanics of what makes a fighting game a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. If somebody, do you guys think there ever will be other games or other makers creating games within the Smash Brothers genre that will be worth keeping around, or do you think that it'll always be something where it'll always come across as them capitalizing on Nintendo's success?
You know, I'm never going to say never, but I haven't seen it yet, and I think Super Smash Brothers combines 2 very important pieces. One is its mechanics, and the other one is players' nostalgia for the characters that they're putting in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the roster is a really important part of why Smash is popular, and any other game trying to do something like that, either they're going to look, if they want to not look like a clone, they're going to have more generic characters, and so it won't have that draw, or they're going to do the same kind of ensemble cast from some other, MC or whatever, and it will feel much more like a direct copy of Smash, and then everybody will compare very directly against Smash, and if they don't get everything exactly right, it's going to be very hard to compete.
Yeah.
How do you feel, McKenna?
Yeah, honestly, y'all have touched on every single point that I wanted to make, so.
For sure. Were there any final thoughts that you guys wanted to add into before we start closing out the episode?
Hey, if you have the opportunity to play in a Smash Brothers tournament, do it. It's a lot of fun.
Even if you're feel like you're going to be outclassed?
I mean, the thing is, they also have tournaments for beginners as well. So.
What's to stop somebody from entering a beginner tournament that's
Well, I mean, they do checks. So.
Okay.
And I feel like a certain level of skill becomes pretty obvious fairly quickly.
Yeah, and they can kick them out.
Somebody starts wave dashing right away. Hey now.
Yeah, I did a beginners tournament, and I wound up winning $100 for it because I got second place.
Nice. So even second place got a cash prize of $100. That's pretty good. How
I mean,
many people were in the tournament?
There weren't a ton of us. There were maybe 50 people in total.
Oh wow, that's a lot though to me. I was thinking.
Yeah, but top 3 people got a cash prize. First place was $250. Second prize was $100. Third prize was $50. And then everybody else got swag. It was really cute.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys wanted to add?
Well, I think we've hit a lot of important bits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and close out the main part of the episode now. But if you guys want to hang out for a couple of minutes after I do the whole sign-off thing, I do have a fun question to pitch as a post-game.
Okay.
All right. So until before then, people who want to hear that, go ahead and listen through the credits and listen through that nice little outro music that we have playing for you right around now. For those of you who don't want to stick around for the end, hopefully we'll see you next time. Please like, follow, and subscribe, especially if you've made it this far into the episode. That must mean that you liked it, right? So the question that I wanted to ask for this post game was, if you could pick one character to add to the game that would be just the absolute worst choice of a character, like we were talking about our favorites, how has this character never been in the franchise, but a character that you could be why, what? No, there's no possible way to make that a fun character to play as in a fighting game, especially Smash Brothers.
The Factorio engineer.
I mean, I don't know. With the success of Minecraft Steve. I could see, just as a devil's advocate, I could see like building conveyor belts as being a part of the skill set.
Yeah, but like the animation of the engineer is so stiff and sort of robotic.
That's true. They would have to do something with it.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've got one. Have y'all played Slime Rancher?
Yes.
Yes.
Just the normal pink slime. The most useless little thing. I mean, sure, you can plort, but that's about it.
I love that because you could also say the same about like the basic slime enemy of any RPG series.
Right.
Yeah.
just
like a gelatinous cube.
Because we already have Dragon Quest representation in Ultimate. Like now you just throw in the slime.
Totally apropos of nothing, but have you heard of the concept of the non-Newtonian slime?
Yes.
No, what's that?
It's an enemy that you can create, that can be fun to create for a D&D campaign, where the harder you hit the non-Newtonian slime, the less damage it takes. Because you know, like non-Newtonian fluids, right?
Oh, it's like the harder you hit, the slower you move through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can make an enemy that's the non-Newtonian slime, and so basically the characters have to figure out how to like hit it for very little in order to actually damage it.
Just like totally invert that. Like...
Yeah.
Oh, another character that popped into my head. It's a phone game that I play pretty regularly.
Battle Cats?
Yep, Battle Cats. Just like the standard cat unit would be hilarious. Yeah. Like it's just like this little round cat that like bites, and that's it. And it just kind of waddles around.
I think I think any of the like pretty useless Pokemon would be pretty funny. So, Magikarp or anything else where it's like not really clear how the Pokemon does its thing, like Diglett. It's just like
yeah, Dugtrio, and like its final smash would be Dugtrio just like lifting out of the ground, and all of them are like naked and buff.
Mine was also going to be a Pokemon. I was going to say Gengar.
Really?
It's like have any attack that doesn't have some kind of an elemental component.
Oh
god, that would be terrible. Yeah. That would be like awful, because it would just mean that certain characters just wouldn't be able to hurt it.
Yeah.
Marth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would not be fun.
No.
What are some other good ones? Now, when you mentioned the Factorio engineer, I'm like trying to think of games like that where it's like you couldn't do that. Like, but then again, there were games like where you'd think there's no way you can make a functional fighting game character like Phoenix Wright, but then he ended up being a pretty capable character from Marvel vs. Capcom. So I don't know.
The duplicants and oxygen not included.
Professor Layton.
Yes.
Dora the Explorer.
Oh no!
Can you see this ass I'm going to kick?
Where is it?
Oh no.
Swiper, no swiping! Or Master Hand, no swiping. The ultimate counterattack.
Bart Simpson from the one game where you're basically just skateboarding the whole time.
Oh god.
Oh, like, Tony Hawk.
And it's like a fever dream.
Tony Hawk
Actually,
from Pro Skater.
That would be a pretty good character. I could see that working out pretty well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah, maybe. Like he would have really bad aerial game unless he built up the right momentum, or.
But he would like move around the level real fast because he could use his skateboard.
Oh, what about the Wave Racer?
Oh, do you mean like Wave Race Blue Storm?
Yeah, that one, the one you were talking about before.
Oh man, yeah. I mean that one, it would be another one like F-Zero, right?
Right.
Where it's like, oh, this character like just exists primarily as a pilot for a vehicle. How do we know they're good? Going to be any good at like fighting hand to hand?
You just make stuff up.
I'm actually kind of surprised that there hasn't been a Jedi yet.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of Star Wars games to pull from.
Yeah, like that would be actually cool because like you have the laser sword, but but like having an actual Jedi with an actual lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
How cool would that be?
I think there was in Soul Calibur, one of the Soul Caliburs, you could play as like Darth Vader.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
Just translate that into that would be pretty sweet. It's like a bunch of force powers.
Yeah.
A character that would be really interesting to see would be the Great Fairy from The Legend of Zelda.
Oh yeah.
Also, another dumb character, just the medium tank from Advance Wars. It's just a tank.
Just have it very slowly chugging along.
Landmaster running around.
You can like
Worms from Worms 3D.
That'd be amazing. I don't know what you're
that would be
talking
pretty
about.
great, yeah. Or what's the what was the one Worm Joe Worm or something like that? I don't know if it was part of the Worms franchise, but Earthworm Jim. That'd be pretty fun. Sims?
I mean, aren't Mii's basically Sims?
Pretty much.
I guess. Sim, but like have him like with a sim like move set. Like basically every move is just like an animation that they do in an actual Sims game, like the depressed animation, or like the I'm starving to death animation, or I'm drowning because you took the ladder out of the pool animation.
Don't try to make babies with the Grim Reaper.
I'm also surprised they've never put anybody from like the Tales franchise. I always thought Lloyd Irving would have been really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then as a
don't
dumb
they have
character,
like the villager from Animal Crossing now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
they made that work, and Isabel.
Yeah.
But like, imagine instead of Lloyd though, they decided to put a Tales character in, and it was Genus.
Oh, Tingle.
No.
No.
Oh man.
I would play the crap out
Oh,
of
man.
some Tingle.
Have you?
I don't care
do
how
you
hard
know
it would be.
about
I would find a way to make Tingle my main.
Do you know about the Tingle game?
Well, there's
Yeah,
two.
the one for the DS.
Yeah, Tingle's Rupee something.
Yes.
Freshly picked Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land.
Yeah, and then there's also his Balloon of Love game.
Oh yeah, there were a couple.
Absolutely chaotic.
I think there were also some
Yeah.
that never made it to the States.
Yeah.
Those were the ones that never made it to the States.
Oh, they were? Okay.
Because they were too weird.
Now, one that I wish that they would bring back, there was only one game that was made for the Sega Dreamcast with this character.
Mm.
Have you guys ever heard of the game Seaman?
Is that the one where you have to control or supervise the evolution of an aquatic species?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember
Yep,
that
and
one.
like
that
it-
game.
You get some like really
yeah,
creepy...
it's like a fish with like an antenna and a human face, and it like talks shit to you.
Oh god.
Now that would be a bizarre character to include.
Pikachu, but the Pikachu from Hey You Pikachu, so that he like
Oh,
never
man.
does what you tell him to do.
Is Brat.
All right.
You're like
Anyway, I
trying
need to jump off.
You're like trying to charge a forward smash and he just falls asleep.
Did you know what you're saying?
Oh, I was saying I need to jump off.
Oh, okay, for
But,
sure.
Okay.
All right, then
yeah,
I
great
think that's a
chatting
good
with you
place
guys.
to call it.
Yep.
All right.
All right, guys.
See you
Thank
later.
Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Adrien, Sami,
Mhm.
McKenna,
Anytime.
this has been awesome as always. I love having you
Mhm.
guys. Love talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was a good
till-
episode.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Till next time, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah. Have a good one.
All
Okay.
right.